Welcome to CITC 2323. This is exercise 3 for lab 1. We'll be managing Failover clusters. In this lab, we'll be deploying the general use file server row. We'll be deploying a scale out file server. We'll be configuring failover and preference settings. We'll be managing cluster and cluster nodes. And we'll be destroying the cluster at the end of the lab. Let's go ahead and begin with our exercise 1 for lab 3. In this exercise, we'll be deploying a general use file server role. So let's go ahead and begin with that. We're in server 1. Let's go to Tools, Failover Cluster Manager. Okay. Now let's select roles. Right click, and we'll be selecting Configure Role. No, just let it load for a minute. Okay. Next. File server. Next. Then on the file server type page, we'll be selecting file server for general use. Next. Then inside of here, for the name, we'll be typing file server. Then we started the IP address. We'll be typing 192.168.1.63. And then next. Then for here, we'll be selecting cluster disk 1 because our cluster disk 2 is the other one that we use, and for some reason the naming scheme is backwards. So our cluster disk 1 in this case is actually our cluster disk 2, and likewise cluster disk 2 is cluster disk 1. For the sake of this lab it's backwards, but it's the same. Okay, and next. And it's just gonna load. Next. Alright, and it was configured. Finish. Now we'll be selecting cluster1.contoso, right clicking, more actions, and then from here we'll be doing more core cluster resources, and then we'll be doing select node. And then from here we'll be selecting server 2. Okay. So the next thing we'll be doing is seeing if our server 2 is the owner node. So we'll be selecting the roles. Let's see. Okay, server right over here. So owner node server 01, and just making sure it's 01. Okay. Now the next thing we're doing is creating a file share. So let's right click this file server role, and then we're going to choose add file share. So let's do file server role, add file share. And we're just going to load, and if there's an error, then the DNS entry has not been created yet, and we just have to wait a couple of minutes. So in this case it appears to be running smoothly. Okay, Now, when the new share wizard appears like this, click S and B share quick. Okay. Next. Then from here, we're doing select file server, and then type a custom path, and then from here we're doing E colon backslash data, and then we'll be typing, and we'll click next. Let me just look for around. Well, since our drive is F, let's just try F instead of E. Maybe the book just has the wrong letter directory. Okay, there it is. And let's try next now. Okay, so that should have solved the problem that we just had. Okay, so on this page, the share name is already set to data. I'm just going to click next. Let's see, a message indicates the local path you entered does not exist. And we're just going to click OK. Then on the settings page, we'll be selecting enabled access based enumeration. And then we'll be clicking next. Then on the permissions page, we'll just be clicking next. And create. Okay, and that's how you deploy a general use file server role. And now let's go ahead and begin with our exercise 2 for lab 3. In this exercise, we'll be deploying a scale out file server. So the first thing we'll be doing is inside of our Failover cluster manager, in our roles, we'll be moving the file server role. So let's just right click. Well, let's go, yep, okay, there it is. And select remove. Then we should be prompted to confirm this action, and we'll be clicking yes as soon as it appears. Okay. Where's the refresh? There it is. Should be getting removed. Yeah, it is. It's just slow. Slow as usual. Alright, and our row is now gone. So let's expand storage. That's the next step. Okay. Yep. Okay, so expand the storage node. Then click this. Okay. So just give it a second to load. And then we'll be right clicking our available storage, which in this case is our cluster disk 1. And whenever it allows me to do that, okay. Then we'll be doing add to cluster shared volumes. And it should now be assigned to the cluster shared volume. Okay, give it a second. Okay, assigned to. So now we'll be going back over to our roles, right clicking it, and configure role. And I'm just going to let this load real quick. Okay, and then we should be selecting next. Inside of here, we'll be selecting file server. Okay, and then we'll be selecting skill file server for application data. And then next. And then we'll be typing file server. Next. Next. And finish. And now we're just going to wait 2 minutes so we make sure that the DNS has enough time to make the entries. Okay, so let's click on our roles and right click file server. And choose add file share. And let's see if it will complete. If not, we just have to wait longer. Okay. Wait for this to load up. Okay, so should be selecting quick. Next. And then from here, we'll be selecting the share location, select by volume. Then we should be selecting the default. So we selected. Next. And the share name, we'll be typing file server. Actually, no, we'll be typing data. Overwrite it. And then click next. And then enable access based enumeration. Next. Next. Create. Close. And that's the end of exercise 2 for lab 3. And so let's go ahead and begin with our exercise 3 for lab 3. In this exercise we'll be configuring failover and preference settings. So let's go ahead and start in this exercise. We're inside of server 1 right now, and we're using the failover cluster manager. We'll be clicking roles, and then we'll be right clicking the file server row and selecting properties. So on the general tab, we'll be selecting server 1. clicking Failover, and click OK. Alright, then we'll be right clicking the file server role again, and then choosing properties, and then unchecking server 1, and click OK. And that's essentially how you configure a failover in the preference settings. Alright, so now we're doing exercise 4, lab 3, managing a cluster and cluster nodes. So we're inside of server 1 still, and inside of failover cluster manager. Let's click our cluster 1.contoso, right click more actions, and then move core clusters. Then from here, select node, and then I'm going to select OK. Now let's click roles, then right click the file server role, click move, and then select node, and then we'll be selecting server 2, select OK, and now we have to go reboot our server 2. So let's go over server 2, give it a start guest, and let's go ahead and start that. Okay, so we've been waiting for server 2 to finish rebooting, and now that's rebooted, we can gracefully shut down our server 1. So right click the server 1 under the nodes, and then we're gonna choose pause, drain roles, and we should watch server 2 replace server 1 as the owner. And there you have it. And let's just right click server 1, choose resume, and fail rules back. And then we should observe that server 1 regains the owner node status, which it does. Alright, and let's go ahead and begin with our exercise 5 for lab 3. In this lab, we'll be storing a cluster. So let's go ahead and begin with that. So on server 1, we'll be using the Failover cluster manager. And inside of here, we'll be clicking roles, which we're already in. We right click the file server role, and click here, remove. And then from here, you want to click yes. And after remove the rule, we can now remove the cluster. So let's go to our cluster, more actions, and destroy cluster. And yes. And then we're just going to wait for it to finish destroying it. Okay, and then we're just going to close our Failover Cluster Manager, and that will conclude Lab 3. And in conclusion, we deployed the general use file server role, we deployed a scale out file server, we configured failover and preference settings, we managed a cluster and cluster nodes, and we destroyed the cluster at the end.